what's the a gong to it? It should be. National Consumer Service and other information since coming 17. Burden team percent service is for access to provide information which you have not able to do. The outcome of service is reinforcement of disability other things that students with disability can. And one way to see solvency, potential one solvency time is as attacked with a mobile reform as the mobile spillover will occur. Nickel 17. U.S. Special Department of Service Enables policy for foreign parts of the solid schools. Trump occurs as a Trump has elementary ratings of this Asian country opposition to injustice from majority of power to protest mobilization to show that hundreds of thousands are arrested. We are represented with the opportunity to happen to some of the positive and the brings forward some of the display question to forefront at education and serious time to be display question how disenfranchisement is going to be a also in public services and Sarah assessing is driving for education reform movement increase the ability to address other injustices and with education create more equal education practice. We control the root causes. No start off 15. Cyrus is a central tool for leverage reform and equality U.S. educational policy. The tool provides choice and decision about children. High C Sarah assess and coverage support for our educational policy. And one C frame conditions for me, frame dreams, beliefs, and studies as a challenge to abstract academic theorizing, ground structure materialized rather than tinkering with rather than exclusionary ideal theories as early as 14. Outside the confines of academia, right with being outside of academic classes when you're starting to interest around you say the guys are listening in their radical imaginations of communities, the guys to be activists. It's not possible to think that disability studies is not to be accountable for material realities as scholarship can be relevant to exclusionary academic relation analysis engages in the materiality of difference in historical context and seeks support on material conditions because it can enable academia and other activism works symbiotically. This analysis pushes to the division between edgy theorizing and accountable practice. I dream of disability justice intertwines with a racial justice, gender justice, economic and social justice. No of a future that's more abstract. And contender 3 is able to be SAT, and ACT are able to say this disproportionate effect disabled students and reform as combinations not only the act solves. As CASA, no, the norms are not based on based on disabilities. Time tests can be challenging. Rely on students to ask for standardized tests. Standardized not tests have been conformed to each individual person's way of learning. People parents would often learn to prepare for a test. I was given cognitive instruction, but I wasn't sure what part was being read. Standardized tests make me feel like I'm stupid enough or they're being productive member of society. I don't think for those I feel like I haven't left behind. And able to provide discuss a free for own core reality, inevitable death. We pursue ideas of perfectibility and civilities. Disabilities used to reassure temporary non-stable folks with their tasks in proper volume. Well, this results in violence against disabled people who begin to represent the epitome of not to that. Choose 12. The aspiration body per embracing human practicability as Karen when involves is disavowal of variation. Disability is the opposite of the ideal body. Disability is with the epitome were not to be a concept of disabled body can be as if the nature of psychic habitus is the standard against which disabled bodies are invalid. Disability has been reproduced in the antithesis of communication community. Any opportunity is scored by able disabilities. Able to discuss him essentially the failure of non-stable people to fully recognize their own vulnerabilities. Able to make them more alien to disabled bodies. They become candidates for genocide and contention for stigma. Accommodation for assessment requiring medical model disability for proof that one disability organization the right to test problematic disability by using able to try to disorder relevant medical history for disability. As a college board, no, the students with learning disorders must report accommodation. Documentation should be information must be up to date, provide relevant medical history and support diagnosis and functional limitations. Despite how the learner's disorder impacts the student's functioning and ability to participate in exams, describe the specific combinations of classes and explain why they are needed. The medical model reinforces disabilities, the deficiency be cured to overcome is vital as an internalized state behavior to force normalization or authorizations. Panetta, A, the medical model describe effects and disabled individual who defines responsible for adapting to their environment. The medical abnormality model views disability as a medical defect or genetic inferiority. Abnormalities are seen as dangerous or their growth disability. Society must be eradicated. People who deviate from normal seen as ill or fitting. And the standardized testing system encourages misdiagnosis, being an advantage and excludes disabled folks from gaining accommodations and stigmatizes people that deserve accommodations such as Hayes, Goldstein, and Patel 19. Psychological system can cause thousands of dollars and not provide insurance every extra time in the country which are in place where students already have greater access to tutors and coaches. Designation is a double national average of sharp disparity in combinations raises the question whether families' money communities can take advantage of the system or they simply have the means to address the problem that less affluent families cannot. Well, there's low down the calls of vulnerable to abuse, private mental health practitioners offering limited oversight from school systems or from their own pressure. All wealthy families are shopping for diagnosis.
Great. The nickel evidence at the top says the SAT activism sparks broader reform movements. What reforms are those?
Okay, so it's just a spillover argument. So like,
yeah, I'm asking for like examples of things that have spillover.
Yeah, examples. Okay, yeah. So let's say like we stop in consideration like the SAT and ACT, then things like in high school reform like in classes.
So class reform, like what does that look like?
Like.
Will you defend that the endpoint of the AF is like sparking a bunch of like curriculum reform in high schools?
Like the endpoint of the AF.
Like, will you defend the AF spills over to that?
We're looking at the endpoint of the AF is like creating a less ableist.
Less ableist. I guess to what extent does the AF result like societal ableism?
Wait, can you go with
Because you've read cards indicting like the medical model, which is a question of how society perceives disabled people. To what extent does the AF resolve that instead of just
Okay, so I don't think it's like the AF's job to like solve for the entire medical model, but like we just create like standardized testing.
I guess why is the medical model evidence relevant in the that?
Oh, why is the medical model? Okay, yeah. So the the SAT and the ACT use the medical model. And they say that that's bad.
How do they use the medical model?
Yeah. So go to the college board college meetings. Like they frame disability as something that's like a disorder or like something that's like bad. And then like that person has like very request to comment. Yeah.
This evidence is only about the SAT and ACT. Do other standardized tests also do this?
Like okay, so the entire idea of standardized tests, like this one size fits all approach, is just bad.
So all standardized tests are bad?
Yeah, we agree.
You haven't read any evidence other than specific to the SAT and ACT. So I guess how do you make that like?
So the app says like the one size fits all approach of standardized testing is bad because like people who like deviate from that are seen as like inferior.
Gotcha. The no certain how evidence, how can standardized tests explain all educational policies?
Wait, the notes for audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the notes for audience talks about how standardized tests are like a driver for all educational reform.
How does that happen? What does that look like?
Like it's just how like schools and like in the like education field.
When schools come up with like common core curriculum that aren't tailored whatsoever to like the SAT or ACT, what does that have to do with standardized tests?
So standardized tests are like the head or like the top for it. So like.
Okay, that's fine. The evidence, I guess, also the national evidence is about high stakes testing, which isn't the same thing as college admissions tests. What does this have to do with the app?
Oh wait, what evidence?
The notes right now evidence.
The notes for evidence?
It says, quote, high stakes standardized tests function as the core for all educational policy, but that's like a question of when people take like ERBs in class and determine school funding. That's not the same thing as college admissions.
Yeah, but like because of like things like spillover.
Okay, so it's a question of spillover. Yeah, that's fine. I'll send that then. It's 3 off.
What's your run case?
Just top that. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm good.
Counterplan text in the United States colleges and universities should not consider standardized tests in undergraduate admissions decisions with the exception of the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Colleges and universities should redistribute the financial aid and merit distribution methods by prioritizing low-income applicants and eliminating merit-based aid to affluent applicants. It competes. The PSAT factors into admissions decisions, even if it's not the biggest factor. As year 19 will be a semifinalist and help me get in culture having semifinalist is a factor will factor the admissions decisions. It's an important step in the acceptance process. Fernandez 19 universities and colleges get the PSAT score. That score will be an important step in students' acceptance process. The Supreme Court says consider means to actively take into account. Lawless JD 18 as you specifically with consider means actively take into account. The PSAT is key to low-income minority student scholarships. The plan would take that option off the table that turns the an external impact they can't resolve. Peterson's 18 taking the PSAT away for a second for scholarship as a friend of the national merit. The PSAT is like a weak alternative scholarship program. The PSAT can help students frustrated to make culture be more. The development partners provide around $220 million annually among students with familiar income situations. And the second plan results scholarship inequity by redistributing money. O'Shaughnessy 10 should clubs continue to give military scholarship with students would lead to a better student body, which should happen at every college and university would drop merit aid for affluent schools would reduce their tuition if everything we ever paid. It could be more reasonable to everyone. It solves 100% of the case. All their evidence is only specific to the SAT and ACT. Don't let them generalize and say that the standardization itself is bad when none of their evidence speaks to standardized tests writ large. The Counterplan. Counterplan text, the United States federal government should rule that the right to education requires that universal design learning be integrated into the curriculum of elementary and secondary education in the United States. UDL enables better educational outcomes and radically challenge stable norms. Their app doesn't account for the classroom beyond the test. Wilson 17, inclusive education that educating all students on the basis of a disability, race, gender, class, gender, ethnicity, sexual religion, disparate requirement, following discourse that comes to students with disability, medical, able-bodied, or white male, middle class, normal schools, free meals, radically inclusive education, very concept of disability, long-term detrimental of debilitating special education that of crime and collusion with our resources. One, where the regular classroom with province of non-disabled students with special education has been used as a tool racial discrimination. States are not required to report gender legitimate and unequal distribution of resources. UD is the best example of the application of the social multiplication of testing and teaching methods that are rich disparities. So you will understand they're often the same obstacle encountered by the two students with different learning. UD will recognize valuing this necessity of cognitive prostheses. UDL revolutionizes education and solves beyond the classroom. It decenters hegemonic norms, which enables new forms of knowledge that can test normality. Wilson 17, the appoints curricular reform lived experience of discipline with the UDL classroom. Students are now required to adapt their ways of to a hegemonic control for students and teachers think about them passing great a powerful verb of discipline along with other forms of discredit, knowing because in a problem with students to understand really good students and teachers the power to form new courses. The next off is the shift is the plan shift admissions to more subjective measures. The result is a heavy reliance on transcripts, essay, and lobbying, which turns the case they insert more ableist biases into the process. Meltzer 18. The rest of this program remain unchanged with the economic case on my estimates that limiting testing would do will transfer while off students are back paying testing logic. So tested is it like this to create to be a Polish private course in the course of the grading system grades and be subjective. Essay would take on additional weight scores of his be sent student guidance counselors actively lobby colleges very big to manage applications with more offices but take shortcuts advice to curriculum process more. The plan shifts to algorithmic discrimination, which is net where sticks in Roman PhD 18. What will replace testimony institutions for kind of predictive analytics algorithms and train high school that between social system augment structural inequalities like the absence or wage favorably and who will give the false negatives then false negatives now false negatives. This is who decisions and ethical decision about what applicants are privileged system may make a new system may require data rank of black before applicants even more comparison equity being subject to calculability. The AFTRS trades testing out for demonstrated interest, which is infinitely worse than Lingo 18. Colleges are coming up with determining public housing culture nationwide schools are trading one equal measure of another sort of interest correlates with more religious systems favor applicants who don't need to worry about financial understanding who gets in is going to be arbitrary. It's empirically proven. Tests get switched out for more unequal alternatives like AP and IB. Chimera 18. What jumps into the back of me supports the test was the IB because empirically particularly with the third college because they don't increase equity for students and students who have much less access to AP and IB. Eliminating test causes a shift to soft holistic assistance that increase inequality. DeBoer PhD 18. Holistic methods goes directly against equality, deaf learning towards hard greater ability to provide extra work face the cultures and ways learn critical teachers, purpose schools for more pressure, rate of pieces of letters, the right theory, this often is beneficial, more privileged. Standardized tests are key to combat grade inflation, greater threat to equality. DeBoer PhD 18 tests are based only lower same grades, grade inflation, grades are linked unequal cost rate is not inflation preference research, only fully wider schools where schools are seeing far more grade inflation with economic advantages, includes difficult match on policy fixed case. One, test-taking evaluation is inevitable. It's built into the scholarship decisions in the college ranking system. SRF 18 staircase found out to spirit to students are going to be tweeting the scores that students will receive scholarship testing and by Harvard Westlake 1.6 million American students test scores to see US and US elite colleges will now stop recording the test. Two, no movements. The nickel evidence never mentions standardized tests and movements are occurring now for their evidence, which means the app isn't uniquely key. Three, standardized tests offer literally infinite accommodations for students with disabilities. Whatever alternative the app shifts to will not, or at least will take decades to develop. Geisinger, PhD 05. Test which is intended to measure any disability experiences that are kind of the ADA extends to the right number of types of visible test contributions to the records with every variety of disability. Almost everyone multiply that number by infinite variation in degrees. Standardized systems will have a that research there was the scores under a non-certain testing measures are relative comparable based on the test and they try to understand standardized testing conditions. 4, testing industry accommodations work according to best statistical evidence. The Geisinger PhD. 5, testing the context for a place to make accommodating test. Administration is available, willing how and study test for admission to college. But the accommodating testing provides substantial validity. 5, obviously tests don't account for all educational policies. They can't explain lunch prices or curriculum. And the Nostra and Au evidence is also about high stakes testing, which isn't the same as college admissions test. They can't win a spillover claim to get rid of high stakes testing when this is your spillover evidence and it's not about the SAT. 6, the Hughes evidence isn't an advantage to the plan. If anything, Hughes' conception of ontology and disability drive is anti-reformist, which proves the gap. F can't solve for entrenched psychological ableism, independently psychoanalysis, unfalsifiable, and pseudoscience. 7, the internal link is a stretch. They obviously don't get to claim they solve ableism. Every single card in their F that's not about testing proof ableism goes far beyond the bounds of the testing room. If they're right about how pervasive and adaptable ableism is, it will just reinstantiate at other points of the educational system, which proves the Counterplan solves better. 8, tests are crucial to identify achievement gaps. Abolishing them means we can't hold schools or politicians accountable. Consensus of civil rights groups votes neg. The Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights et al. 15. Human rights groups and mass opposition to anti-testing tests are important because they are the only able to stand objectives to restore about the spirits of others, advocate for greater resource activities to switch students from taking assessment or underfunded ability of this set to therapeutic full understanding testing may speak about anti-testing efforts but establish from net. Close to the schools try to sweep disbursements without hiding the shaming gaps. The schools would not have to allocate the effort to close them out, just would rather claim false mental civil rights activists we cannot fix what we cannot measure. 9, the social model of disability marginalizes chronic conditions which prevents effective strategies that counter able-bodied norms. Jenkins. 9. Drive to demystify disability preference, disability because I have disability with illness contributes to the analysis from the social model. The expense of individuals with disabilities who are handing back the that they're suffering, they're degrading how the threat that the consequences of disability and illness from disability are not pressure grade. Admit they're basically what he calls the able disability. The nearly exclusive focus on disability, social construction within disability studies, intention to impairment undergrounds activist efforts and individuals typically cope with the social effects of disability are silenced by inherent and many of these things have been created. Constraints are self-expression by studying the full range of disability will it be possible to understand the diversity of human embodiment. 10, skip the next point. Disability studies is whiteness, spell. MAO 6, disability studies is attending explanation with race. Well, the field acknowledges about efforts at addressing and understanding between disability rates and control wanting disability studies claim the exam of experience of vast number of disability form and presentation is too often white.
What's the status of the Counterplan?
The condo.
Okay, is the PSAT considered admissions for undergrad?
What? Yeah. So we've read 2 pieces of evidence that it's specifically important in the college admissions process.
Oh, and then can you spin the shift here for the link to it?
Well, there's a lot of internal links. I guess I can go through each one of them. First, the Meltzer evidence talks about things like transcripts, essays, and lobbying, which are alternatives. Basically, when the plan gets rid of SATs or standardized tests, something else has to fill the vacuum. Our argument is every one of those alternatives is worse than standardized tests.
Okay, cool. And then on case, can you explain why nickel doesn't why nickel moves no movements?
Yeah, the nickel evidence indicates that movements are happening right now, which would indicate that the F probably isn't key. It also never mentions standardized tests. Like, it is literally all about like generic educational reform movements, which means that the plan obviously isn't key to spark these spillover movements if it's A, already happening, and B, isn't a product of the F.
Okay, and then on the gender GA, what is it?
I didn't read it.
Oh, okay. Wait, so you read 9 point though, right?
I read the 10 point after the gender dissent. The
Wait,
Bell
is it-
evidence? Yeah, I read the 9 point.
Oh, wait.
I just skipped over the gender dissent.
Oh. So you read King? Wait, did you read the King evidence?
No.
Oh, so you just skipped King and then you read Bell. What do you mean disability studies of whiteness?
Yeah, so disability studies kind of claims this false mantle of like civil rights activism, except the form that disability representation takes is our evidence as, quote, too often a white one. This is not a sporadic occurrence, quite on the contrary, the slights occur habitually. Basically, disability studies, like the field of critical literature itself, is predicated on a very white perspective of disability. It doesn't take into account things like intersectionality.
Oh wait, how is grade inflation a greater threat to equality?
Grade inflation is basically just when private schools have a bunch of parents with political capital that they can jack up all of their like GPAs. So public schools kind of get screwed over. So all of the like low-income poor students who go to public schools aren't going to be able to compete, which means a greater threat to equality.
Do you read the Roll of the Ballot like framework?
Do I read like a roll of the ballot? No.
Yeah.
acts in the 1 and C contextualize what impacts matter under the F, but also the shift is like turns all into offense, so it's like kind of irrelevant.
What's the UDL, or how does it look like?
Universal design learning is a curriculum reform that does things like inclusive education programs and like redefining hegemonic discourses in the classroom.
How does that look like?
Like it's just that. It's like a curriculum reform that changes the things and how people learn.
That's all California, right?
Yeah.
are commonly able to use medical models to forcing disabled people to always be perceived as deficient. They only really provide extra time to disabled students. They can never solve the word has to be able to always giants always make them feel ableism always create a long-term my fear temporary analysis which always see the table always abnormal something not to be which is disgusting. Only the acting substance to be eliminated their consideration called for ripple effects in the education system. Accommodation can never solve because using medical models disability which reinforces disability is deficiency to be cursed to overcome it is resulting in constant violence against disabled people. Hughes affirms and on the line by line Hughes affirms it's impacted why things like the SAT and ACT are bad and they have to go with it because they frame disability as something not to be, which is not to be because it's divided into the divine standard assessing because standard assessing is bad because it's always like one size it's basically supposed to be a one size fits all thing, but people who dive into who standard assessing don't all work for are always going to be marked as divine, and we don't have to solve for all of ableism. Just all we have to do is prove that the SAT and ACT are ableist and then they go away. It's good for the civil people. It's in Everelli's we have to the world about us look this agreement disability. I mean we have to look at the material impacts of disability and see material impacts of disability and see what if the actual neck row is better for the civil people. And accommodations don't work, and even if they do, they're still bad because they use a medical model disability because you always have to because they do things like diagnosis, which always leads to a model where it's always from constant violence against disabled people. And also, there is spillover spend nickel and no Worcester. They say that no talks about high stakes testing, but no because no talks about standard assessing. Any hit to standard assessing, leads to ripple effects in the system because especially when it's a unilateral reform like the one they see through every college is not considered standard assess it's not considered standard assess though it means the spillover does happen and then destroys the shift again on the haircuts. Calling things are voting shooting with the entire V1AC force of 1 year reach recording 13 massive times ago compounded by the fact that I have to win cases is preferable to rules and formats reading cops of 6 kilograms of policy appearance because it's a bonus and such a come back activity. They create a race low quality first position. You don't even have to withstand scrutiny because they can do all the chance I have any good arts against them. They still no clash or quality ground and kills first or any education. Also since it's a peg whatever minimal offense I get on the pig they can just kick out of maximum time scale with it and since minutes whenever I cover least round and get 3 minutes to restart on the 2 AR which is bad and that's a voting issue too. Drop them. On the pig send the standard assessing is always ableist and always that, which means that this is still bad because they still have the PSAT in there and they still have the PSAT which is still bad for disabled people because it's a standardized form where if they depart from that it's medical model. The medical model is still bad and the PSAT is still used in medical model. It's still through college board. College board no data. We talked about how and we criticized talked about how college board is bad because they use words like disorder relevant medical history, which means that the PSAT is still horrible. The second plan doesn't solve it, just talks about financial aid redistribution, which isn't what the framing is about, which means that which means you get also when the LCP is not competitive perm to the Counterplan, and so you can perm do both on the shift TA. We have spillover, so that doesn't happen. Also, your examples of your examples for AP and IB are just a force and standard system.
Alright, we do 4 or 5 minutes.
5.
First on condo, my interpretation is we get two conditional counterplans that interchecks all their offense because there's only two flows. The F needs to split time between which check times the or offense. One logic, proving a counterplan. Sorry. Proving the counterplan is better than prove the plan is good. A policymaker can always choose not to act logic. Always is the basis of all rational arguments. Two, neg flags are inherently reactionary. We need in-round flags to test the plan and have a fighting chance. If they have nominal answers to the counterplan, the debate would be over after the winner. We're just educationally bankrupt. Three is real world. Key to portable skills and advocacy training. They look at a lot of policies in the real world. Four, considered 5 policy responses to Angola. Carter looked at 7. There were 40 possible sanctions against the USSR. 4 is negation theory. In the real world, policies are attacked from the left and the right since there is only one negative in the debate. This requires contradictory arguments and hence conduit with the plan is the middle ground. They should have to win middle good, not lesser of two evils. 5, the one error should be hard. It's the turning point in the debate. Conditionality forces in-round strategic thinking, which removes coding from the equations. The app doesn't have to contradict themselves or undercut. They need to make tough choices. 6, key to research, unidimensional. 1, and cease discourse the net from having multiple strategies against a case. Research is the most important part of debate. Education is the only skill we take into the real world. The defense, 1, schools inherently conditional. We can say no warming and warming good, plus arguing an infinite number of statistical policies solve warming. 2, we debate in both worlds. 2, no unique abuse for the app. If we shake the capital and the entire AC becomes offense. 3, app advantages, check abuse. They get infinite prep, the first and last speech, and the right to choose case area and plan wording. 4, straight turn checks. They can stick us with a net benefit and read add-ons to apply whether or not we kick the counterplan. The line ball and the times Q argument. 1, times Q is inevitable speed differentials between different debaters, and if we collapse to it is that we still have a 6-3 rebuttal advantage. 2 is strategic time allocation solves, and the one error should be harder, which impacts strength. That was done above. You say fringe positions kill clash, except fringe positions are also inevitable. Tiny T shells and a bunch of tiny picks are all fringe positions that move the topic of discussion and recenter the debate into an arbitrary and small part of the topic literature. You say pick means we can't win offense, except you haven't won any reasons why picks are uniquely bad, especially not conditional picks. Picks are good in order to test the argument from multiple different fighting points, and all the condo good arguments should also prove why picks are good. The UDL counterplan. If anything, the picks argument just proves you should drop the argument, not the debater. It's key to return to substance, and all of the Q's evidence says we should discuss disability, which means the substance of education is that good. The UDL counterplan. It solves 100% of the app. A's curriculum, universal design learning is a new curriculum guide for teachers to follow that creates anti-pathologizing discourses that T-center hegemonic norms of able-bodiedness, whiteness, and masculinity. It literally redefines disability, which means that it's a better internal link to their medical model bad offense. This is a radical reform that fundamentally alters what schools teach and how they teach it. B is resources. Inclusion isn't enough. Throwing more disabled students at higher education by getting rid of tests doesn't answer the question of what they do once they get there. The counterplan bolsters elementary and secondary education that gives disabled students a better fighting chance in modern educational institutions. That means we solve better than the app. All the one I see evidence about ableism is powerful and all-encompassing political project proves it exists beyond the testing room. The plan is a tiny drop in the bucket of ableism, but the counterplan revolutionizes the whole education system, which means they need to win the plan skills up. We don't need to win that our reform skill down. Framing issues, they have no solvency deficits. There's only a risk of the net benefit. Evaluate the counterplan through the runs of sufficiency. Anyways, we solve all of their internal links, but even if there's some marginal risk of solvency deficit, error net based on the magnitude of the net benefit, because it was also mostly conceded. The only thing I have to answer is the permutations. 1, permutation due to counterplan is incoherent because the counterplan isn't the affirmative, and the permutation do both. It links to the shift because they still get rid of tests, which requires alternatives to fill in the vacuum, which means it still links to all of our shift arguments, and it's also mutually exclusive. The counterplan is curriculum reform, which requires keeping tests to serve as a curriculum benchmark. The shift is set. At the top, I'm going to list the warrants for the shift set. They have to answer every single one because winning just one internal link provides a route through which colleges can make admissions more unequal. First is algorithms. Colleges are already making moves for statistical algorithms, which is bad because they're trained on historical data, so they augment inequalities by telling disabled people they're worse and legacy children they're better. That turns case. Test optional and reform movements proof standardized testing is moving in the direction of increasing disabled equality, but algorithms are going in the opposite direction because they're built to cement the status quo by using past data to determine future applicants. Second is lobbying. Wealthy schools have a history of sending students to good schools, and removing the SAT gives guidance counselors even more power. That's Meltzer. It turns the case, it lets biases creep into the process even more because old white ableist dudes will be the guidance counselors and simply recommend disabled students to worse schools. Third is demonstrated interest. The plan causes students to be admitted based on how badly they look like they want to get in. It has an external poor and classism impact. It favors the rich because only they can afford plane tickets to go visit campuses and they can apply an early decision, unlike poor students who need to go through the slow process of financial aid. It also turns the case because disabled people can't as easily fly out to college campuses or go in long physically demanding college tours to show their interest in schools. Finally, is holistic assessments. Instead of test scores, colleges will just make soft judgments of the student's character using extracurriculars. These overwhelmingly favor the rich and able-bodied because they can have connections, they can do internships after school and go do things like sports and have more after-school opportunities since they don't have to work from a young age, which turns the case disabled people are seen as holistically worse since they don't have the sort of access to things like educational reform. All I have to do is win on case that they don't spill over because that was the only response to the shift is that's a case. First, at the top, extend that disability studies as whiteness was pretty much conceded it's a voting issue because it proves that they reify all distorted versus binaries that they critique in all of their evidence, which is independently a reason to reject their study and their overarching critical theory argument. Second is that tests are good, which takes out your disability argument. They're key to solve inequality because A is accountability. Absent testing, it's impossible to identify achievement gaps. Start this argument, even if tests are flawed instruments, without them there is no way to identify or target schools that are failing or unequal or bad for disabled people. That's why the 12 largest civil rights groups all endorse testing. B is movement. Standardized tests provide publicly available information activists can use to hold politicians accountable for educational failures. Otherwise, there is no publicly available data. These are crucial for arguing for school funding, which is bigger internal links than the case. It outweighs on magnitude and also proves the internal link term. There nickel evidence about how it sparks a bunch more movements. Also extend that the nickel evidence never mentioned standardized tests whatsoever, and it also indicates that movements are already happening in the status quo, which means the gap is definitely not uniquely key to causing these sort of spillover movements. Even if they win that they do spillover, it's not enough to mitigate or shift dissent offense, because all our shift dissent things that exist in the status quo, which proves that all of the status quo movements obviously aren't doing enough. There's no real increase in the right classing the plan would be able to solve back for things like GPAs, which are already a huge part of college processes.
Okay, so why does Sharp never make voting issue in the one seat? Don't let them make it one. Now to be over, but let me tell you that the column is good, but column is definitely bad because they recognize and fairness comes first. As it says the columns are voting. They move the entirety of the one seat and forcing a 2-year research, creating a massive time to compound the fact that I have to win cases. I have to win cases, and they get to spend systems that I cover at least. I have to research on a 2-year with only three months, which means that they are on the argument of time skew is inevitable. They say that time skew is inevitable, but time skew is inevitable. Things like and even if time skew is inevitable, condo definitely makes it worse. There might be an inherent time skew to debate, but condo makes the time worse because whatever time I spend in the 1 year on, or whatever time I spend in the 1 year on the Counterplan, they can just kick. So time skew might be low inevitable, but they make it worse, and that's a voting issue. No, all of their arguments are based in education, but fairness comes first for education because it's a gateway issue, lack of fairness in division around because we don't know what we're going to have perfect classroom, and B, basically evaluating everything else in the debate properly. Education just a good side problem, but if the round is skewed, you can evaluate which definitional role you have to judge, and C, education is not unique. Most of the debates, education comes from Alvarez research, so you can also read a book from the news or spend some hours in school. And D, fairness internal education, you can engage you some skew because you're obviously not getting some education if there's an uneven discussion of issues, because you have to vote on calling about because there's no other fair debate left to vote on, because every debate has been impacted by the time skew because by running a conditional pick they make the time skew way worse, and it's way worse, and it just isn't they just made a calendar Counterplan, but a conditional pick that's way worse because whatever minimal offense I can get from the pick it gets go goes away, which is bad because I mean in Apple they times for the app and education is novel or all their arguments also fairness always education because it's a prerequisite education. We can never have an education debate if it's not fair because none of us know what our arguments to make and we need clash and we need only through fairness can we have clash and one all arguments in education because one learns education value of the theory since it provides extra layer and B people learn about structure and logical arguments when people has to answer arguments and increase their critical thought. That's the theory debate is a wash and everything is educational, which means that you have to go after this concept.
Well, this was a good debate. So I voted negative. I think that the issue in the 2AR is that you don't deal with a lot of these 2NR arguments that exist kind of independent out of this question of if fairness or education comes first. So one of the arguments that you concede is an argument about negative flexibility, which I think has an in-root to fairness. I think that though you might be correct that even if time skews inevitable, Kondo does make that a little bit worse. I think you're conceding that conditionality is beneficial for negative flexibility, which they've made arguments is important given all the other affirmative flexible advantage or affirmative strategic advantages that you have, like picking the app, having one AR theory to access, etc. I also think that you concede this logical policymaking argument, which they make an argument about why it precedes questions of fairness in education because all argumentation must be logical. And so those kind of top-level concessions as well as some other concessions about time to being inevitable kind of affects the strategy of a lot of these 2AR arguments.
Oh.
Yeah. Questions from either of you? Okay.
So in the 2AR, would you have gone for like case? Because I feel like it was like a law case, so you know.
Yeah, no, this 2AR is definitely in a tough spot.
Okay.
I think that the 1AR needed to spend less time extending case and just doing the thesis level explanation of the app and spending more time getting through all these case arguments and then answering in more depth the shift to set. So I think that a lot of the 1AR is just like, this isn't relevant. The app takes a stance against standardized testing, which is ableist, that's enough. But the issue is that a lot of the 2NR is spent impacting out each one of these case terms to the effect that it has on disabled students.
So like with the case type in the 1C, how would you like spend less time on cases?
So I think it's just a question of being more efficient.
Okay.
I think working on articulating the case in as few words as possible is the first step.
Okay.
So the 1AR doesn't really have to reinvent the wheel. Like I was, obviously flowing the entire debate. So I have a pretty good understanding of what the app does. So
yeah.
Really, the 1AR extension of the case should be most centered around just like impact comparison and referencing some of the framing arguments that you think are relevant to taking care of some of these case arguments.
So if I just like focused on like the Everelli stuff and like the framing stuff, instead of like the solvency, I guess, would that be good?
So I think that that's what most of this 1AR is composed of, is just like making general framing arguments.
Yeah.
I think that you need to do more line by line that answers these specific indicts. Because I think that the 2NR very persuasively impacts out why the fact that holistic evaluations are shifted to makes everything worse for students with disabilities.
Makes sense. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. I will be right back, you all.
Just to make sure, is everyone fine with me posting that on YouTube?